Savage Nation. I watched a fascinating documentary on Netflix last night and couldn't stop watching it. I went up 1, 2, 3 segments of it. A good friend of mine said, you got to watch this about Trump. It's called An American Dream. And he said it really paints him in a terrible picture. He's a Machiavellian, doesn't have any belief in anything. I said, wait a minute, I don't believe that. So I watched 1, 2, or 3 episodes, actually 3, and I couldn't stop watching it. It's a British documentary, and as you can imagine, designed to be a hit job on Donald Trump. But guess what? It came out exactly as the opposite for me. I saw the romantic and the idealist that Trump is in several different areas. And today's show is going to begin with this topic, which no one in the media has ever said. They've called him every name under the sun, except the right one, because Trump is fundamentally a romantic and an idealist. In one case, he says to an interviewer that when his wife, Ivana, who was his business partner, would come home from work, they were very close in their working, Ivana would say, we're going to do this, this, and this tonight. And he said, I didn't want to live like that. He said she became more of a business partner than a wife. And that is when Donald Trump began to look for someone else to be his romantic partner. Another indicator of his romanticism, to me, is what he does for a living. He is a builder. Trump could have been a doctor or anything else, but he chose to be a builder. He could have been something else. Let's put it that way. Well, why did he become a builder? Well, his father was in the business, but not everyone whose father was in the business does the son follow. But what is a builder? Someone who wants to root themselves to the land and cement their legacy to the land itself. Think about what it takes to be motivated to build high-rises like that. What would drive someone into that very, very challenging world? Trump was rooting his name into the nation the same way he did in New York City. He is deeply connected to America, I would say more so than any president in our lifetime. And this is precise. Globalists and internationalists hate him. They have no connectivity to this nation. They have no loyalty to this nation. The globalists see America as an apartment that they have rented and can leave as soon as possible or whenever they wish. The globalists are not rooted to this land. They are fundamentally people without a country, which is why they so hate a man who loves this country. Going back to the 1970s, New York was a sewer. Buildings were falling apart. Crime was rampant. Filth was everywhere. And something needed to be done. I fled New York in 1968, I think. It was a nightmare. I saw no future for the city. President Ford famously told the city that they wouldn't be getting any federal money to save it. So there was a legendary hotel in the middle of Manhattan set to be knocked down because of the terrible economy called the Commodore. Trump had a vision to buy this relic of a hotel and turn it into something modern, dynamic, and attractive. But what he asked for in return was a tax abatement. Now, many at the time, the liberals, called it a corporate welfare system. But at that time, in that place, it was an innovative idea that would put private money into the city and provide jobs. So what happened? He fought for the tax abatements, and he built a beautiful hotel in the middle of Manhattan called the Hyatt Regency. He created thousands of jobs and brought a jewel to a place in the city that was dying. And I've stayed in that hotel, at least when it was first built. It was a very attractive building. But what was Trump met with for this success? Unmitigated envy and jealousy. Now, the same thing happened years later with the Wollman Ice Rink in Central Park. It had been an icon in Central Park and was falling apart. The city planned to rebuild it in 2 years at a cost of about $4.9 million. But after 6 years, the city still hadn't completed rebuilding the Wollman Ice Rink. And guess what? They'd already spent $12.9 million. So Trump said he would look down upon it from his office, and, he said, we got to redo this. So he wrote a letter to the mayor, Mayor Koch, I believe, and he offered to rebuild the rink, or was it, no, the other one, Beam, I think, was there, another genius. Trump offered to rebuild the rink at his own expense in return for leases to run the rink and the restaurant next to it. He also asked the city to reimburse his costs, and he would donate any profits to charity. And what did Trump do? He finished renovating the Wollman Ice Rink in 4 months and $750,000 under budget. And he gave most of his profit to charity as promised, including groups like, pay attention now, all you liars, United Cerebral Palsy, Partnership for the Homeless, and Gay Men's Health Crisis. That's right. The supposedly homophobic Trump was donating to gay charities all the way back in the 80s. A mayor comes along named Ed Koch, and instead of working with Trump on more projects, he took away the tax abatements and that stopped Trump from building the tallest building in the world, Trump Tower. Well, one of the tallest buildings in the world. And why? Because of unmitigated jealousy and hatred for someone who loves his country and loves the American dream and wants to see it happen for others. At least that's the way I see it. Koch was a liberal. The city council was run by liberals who hated the rich. They saw everything through the lens of Marxism. Now, let's be clear. Trump is fundamentally a romantic and an idealist. He romanticized the city of New York. His passion is idealism. It's the American dream. It is taking something falling apart and rebuilding it. It is building something out of nothing. This, ironically, is why Hollywood and the left hate him. Because Trump is actually the depiction of what they try to portray in their roles. And that connectivity to the land is exactly what unites him to the average man. They relate to him even though he's rich because he sees the nation the same way the average Eddie does. They don't look at nationalism as white supremacy, as the media would like you to believe. They look at nationalism as a love of nation, as a place where you can dream big and produce great things. The average man is actually a romantic and an idealist, just like Trump. They have dreams for themselves and their family. And that is why Trump was able to win states the experts said were impossible to win. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That is why he is now so upset at General Motors right now, because they actually are stabbing Eddie in the back. And the unmitigated jealousy that they have for him is why they hate him. Jealousy, envy. They are not romantics or idealists. They are elitists. They are globalists. They are not nationalists. They do not care about Eddie. Trump had the nerve to do things in New York people said couldn't be done, and he did them. I believe he's trying to do the same thing for America right now, but those same envious people from both sides of the aisle are standing in his way all over again. Again, the monologue's title is Trump is fundamentally a romantic and an idealist, but it could also be called the dynamics of envy, because envy is what I saw. Everyone who put him down and tried to smear him in this Netflix documentary was jealous of him one way or the other. There are people in this country, I know of some of them, who spend their every waking retired hour writing hate mail about Trump to their friends on Twitter or on Facebook. This is all they do. They've retired. They were losers in life, failed at almost everything they ever tried. They lived while their wife worked. I know one of them. A complete failure. A jealous man who wished that he had wives like Trump did. A jealous man who wished that he could have built, never mind a high-rise like Trump did, let alone a high-rise. He wished that he could have built a single-family house, which he never did. He wished that he had a career. He didn't. He wished he had a beautiful wife, which he didn't. And so everything that Trump is, they wanted to be. And so as a result of not being able to be that, what happens? They hate him. This is the truth about what's going on in this country. Because I evaluate his policies. And believe me, I have been as critical of some of the foreign policies, some of the environmental policies, as anyone in this country. And if I thought that there was a false word in what I read to you just now, I wouldn't have written it. I don't think there's a false word in it. So as I say, last night I stayed home. I cooked some food in the little house, and I made Teddy feel good, and I watched this documentary for hours. I just couldn't stop watching it. I watched it for a number of reasons. One, because it showed me New York in the 70s, the garbage, the filth, the bums, the turnstile jumpers, the squeegee men, the gangs roaming the streets, the tipped-over cans of garbage, the abandoned buildings in the Bronx. They looked like bombed-out shells in Berlin after World War II. That was the city that I ran from in the late 60s. When Trump rehabbed the Commodore Hotel and turned it into the Grand Hyatt, and then later on built Trump Tower, at the time, I think the tallest apartment tower in the city, what he did was he saved New York City, and the city came back to life. Well, all of it is not roses. There are other segments in there about him going into the gambling business in Atlantic City, and his father, Fred, told him not to go into it, and he got into trouble by overspending on the building with his grandiose ideas of the Taj Mahal, which eventually had to declare bankruptcy. But he always pulled himself back from disaster. And this goes right to today. Every step along the way, his detractors said he would fail. Every step along the way, they said he was going to go to jail or go out of business. And they were wrong, because he has a tremendous vision and a tremendous will. And I see the same thing happening right now, not only with the fake Mueller investigation, but with the business deals as well that he's trying to cut for America. And so you say, well, is this too complimentary? Are you just not licking his boots? You could say anything you want about me. It doesn't really matter. My name is Savage. That's all I want you to know is Savage is the name. But nothing that I've said to you thus far rings falsely to me. When I come back, I'm going to play you some segments from this amazing documentary, An American Dream. We're going to start with the Commodore Hotel, the tax abatements, the romantic conversation about his first wife, Ivanka, his incredible mother, and how he saved the ice rink. I'll be right back.
Savage.